Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Tom, and we're doing an oil change on the trans and on the engine of a 2010 Nissan Maxima. There's a lot of stuff on the internet about replacing the fluid in the tranny, but there's been zero videos that I've seen about replacing the filter. And the filter that needs to be replaced is this guy. And here's the part number. Hope you can see that in the glare. Hope that is visible. This is the transmission oil filter assembly for the CVT transmission used on this generation of Nissan Maximas, and this guy is not really shown too much on any of the videos that I've seen. So that guy is located right down here, and it's right next to the transmission in the front, right above where that white rag is, right here, this guy. And it's held in place by three 12mm bolts. To get at this, you remove the front wheel, which I've already done, and then you remove the inner splash panel, and that gives you direct access right to that filter. So it's pretty easy to change. Doesn't look like a big deal. I just wanted to show this because there's been a bunch of things on the internet that I've seen, especially on YouTube, with guys struggling to get these dipsticks out. This is how you have to put the trans fluid into the transmission, right here, this guy. And you can see I've removed the airbox. I took the airbox out because I wanted to clean it out because it was dirty. Despite the fact that the filter's in there, there was a lot of trash in the bottom of the airbox. And the way this thing comes out, it's really a little odd. What you do is you use a flat-headed screwdriver right through here. That unlocks that little piece behind there. I don't know if you can see that. And let me see if I can get a light in there to show it. No, I'm not going to be able to show it to you too well. In any case, sorry about all the movement in the video. But anyway, what you do is you take a flat-headed screwdriver, push in on this tab, and that'll allow this to come up a little bit. And then what you can do is you can go underneath and you can pry here, and out it comes. Okay? I've seen a bunch of videos about this, people struggling to get these things out. I know it's a little tricky, but I think if you do what I just showed you, you should be fine. Again, you go in from the top, from here, push the tab in, pick up on this a little bit, and what will happen is this locking tab will move behind this metal plate. Once it's behind the metal plate, you can then go underneath and pry it up and then pull your dipstick out. And of course, you have to have this out in order to be able to refill your transmission, so you really want to do this first. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I've already sprayed some rust penetrating oil on there. That's what I used. I don't think it matters what brand you get. I think they're all pretty much the same. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but there's one bolt up front, there's one bolt here, and there's one that the socket is on now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take those three bolts out. I have my drain pan below here. I got a rag, bunch of rags. I got my drain pan sitting on a tray also, because inevitably I spill oil all over the place. I'm a sloppy mess. You know, you never know where the oil is going to run, it seems like. So I just want to make sure that I try to catch as much as I can, because this is my own garage, and you can probably see some stains on the floor from my previous work. Anyway, so I know I'm sloppy, so I try to accommodate that. And I had this old aluminum pan that I got from a job I did. Guys were throwing them out, so I picked up a couple of them and hung on to them so that when I do situations like this, I'm less likely to make a big mess. So I make a kind of a smaller mess. So I hope this helps you. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take those bolts out. And I already cracked them loose. And it's kind of a little noisy here for a second while I zip these out. I am using an air ratchet, but it doesn't matter. You can use a regular old manual ratchet. It makes no difference. This makes it easier for me. I used to work on cars years and years ago, probably 40 years ago. And man, that's really dating me. But anyway, okay, so I zipped those bolts out with the air ratchet, and unfortunately the air compressor, which is only, I don't know, a few feet away from where I'm working, kicked on. So rather than having you sit there and listen to all that noise, I figured I'd just pause it for a minute. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take those little clamps off the top of the hoses, and we should get our filter free at that point. and I'll get back right with you when I have the new one and ready to go in. Okay, viewers, so what I've done now is I've taken the first hose off, which is this top one, and what I did was I very carefully stuck it up right behind here, and that little cover will keep it in place so that the line doesn't keep dripping all over the place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can get at this clamp right here, and I apologize for the poor quality and everything of the video. I'm doing the best I can trying to do this one-handed, but this comes off. This is another hose clamp, and what I'm going to do is just use a pair of these pliers, and these are, you know, fine. The hoses seem to be in pretty good shape. They're not hard. This car is now 10 years old, and I guess because of the splash shield and it's protected from the elements for the most part, the hoses seem to be in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and take that clamp off. Hopefully we don't get a lot of oil out of it. If we do, I'm going to do basically the same thing and just kind of turn it up so it can't continuously drip, and we'll get the new filter in and go from there. Okay, viewers, so now I've gotten the replacement transmission filter in place. I took the hoses off the old one, put them back on, and remounted the new filter. And that's the new filter. I should say I put the hoses on the new filter. So just one last note. I just wanted to talk about maybe going over the nuts and bolts when you have stuff out, or when you have an assembly out, or you're working on something, you see rust or corrosion. Take a little bit of time and just put some corrosion blocker on there. And there's a bunch of companies that make this. This just happens to be the stuff that I'm using. It's called Corrosion Block. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but anyway, this is just stuff I think I picked up at the Marine Supply House years ago when I had a boat. I've had it for a long time. I'm guessing it's still good, but usually what I do is if I see any kind of rust or corrosion, I'll take a little bit of this stuff and just spray it on those parts that I think I may have to take apart in the future or starting to rust. Okay guys, so I just wanted to show how this cover goes on because I didn't show it coming off, and it's really not too complicated. It just lines up, and you'll see it when you go to take yours apart. You'll see these guys in here, and basically what they are is there's little plastic push pins. This cover is the one you remove. This comes off, and these goofy little pins, I really don't like them too much, but it seems to be everybody's using them these days. So anyway, what they are these. They got like a center pin, and what you do is you pry this little center pin up, and that retracts that little center rivet, and when it does that, it makes this a little bit smaller, and it's still, a lot of times they get stuck, they break off. I would suggest going on Amazon and getting a bag of these. These are, I think they're 8mm, could be wrong about that, but it's easy enough. You can take, they're all the same basically on a car. What you can do is take the one that's the ones that are holding the little filler panel up by the radiator. They're easy to get to. You can pop one of those out, measure it up, and see what it is you need to get from Amazon. But this little cover, like I said, it's got one little strap on the bottom. You can take that out if you want to. You don't really have to. I took it out just because I didn't know if I needed to or not. You really don't need to. You can leave this whole thing there, and this just fits up behind that brake line right there. And I don't know if you can see that at all, but there it is. So what you can do is just use, you know, put this all back, and like I said, I didn't show it coming off, but here it is going back. So hope that helps. Hey guys, so now we're underneath the car. What we're going to do is we're going to drain the transmission fluid out. Now luckily you don't have to remove any covers or anything underneath the car. You can get right at the drain plug, which is right there, that Allen head. I don't know if you can see that big one right in the middle, right there, this guy. So I want to spare you from listening to me grunt, but I did loosen it a little bit. I just cracked it loose before, and this is using a, what size is that? Come on, guy. There we go. It is a number 10. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a number 10 Allen. So I'm guessing it's 10mm across, and you can probably pick that up at any auto parts store. You can use a regular Allen key. I just happen to have these sockets, which are really nice to have and use, but a regular old Allen key will work just fine. So you just want to loosen this up. And what I did when I first started, when I was going to take the transmission filter off, was I went and sprayed a little bit of like bust rust kind of material, liquid wrench, that stuff, a little bit of light oil, and I just sprayed it in the little gap there, and hopefully that will just get it loosen up, loosen up the rust and corrosion that's on there just enough so you can break that loose. I don't think it's really a problem getting it out, but just be really, really careful. Don't strip that. Make sure that when you put the socket in the first time, or your Allen wrench, whichever you have, that you make sure that this goes all the way in. Okay, that's all the way in. What you can do is the first time you put it in, if it only goes in part way, you can just take a hammer and tap your Allen wrench in, take it out, maybe take a little wire brush and clear that out a little bit, but make certain that that area on that bolt, that drain plug rather, is corrosion free, and that your wrench fits in there really tight, because if you strip that out, you're really going to be screwed, because as you can see, the outside of this thing is completely round. I don't know why they used a drain plug like that, but whatever, who knows what Nissan does. So if you do happen to strip that out, it's going to be a big problem trying to get it out later. You might have to take the whole this pan completely off. And just so you can see where that's at, here's the drain plug up in here, okay, and excuse me, over here, and this pan would have to come off in order to drain the fluid out otherwise, which is a big pain in the neck. You've got a ton of bolts. I don't even know that I'd want to even do that at that point, but just be real careful with that, and it should come out. It shouldn't be any big deal. And since we've already removed our dipstick, which I showed you earlier, that allows air to vent into the transmission, which will help with the draining process of the fluid. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I do have the oil drain pan plug out, and just so you know, this drain plug is, I wouldn't say the greatest. Certainly the threads don't look too good on it. I'm not a machinist, so I don't know what the process is for making these things. I'm guessing it's done on some sort of a roll thread forming machine. But I guess the upshot of all of this is it's extremely fine thread, and you want to make sure that when you go to put this back in, you have it lined up perfect so that it goes in straight. And again, this is not a big deal. You just need to be careful. It does look like it's plated, but those threads are pretty fine, and they don't look like they were made very well, honestly. They kind of some burrs on them and stuff. So just be careful when you go to take it out, and when you go to put it back in, of course, which is the tricky bit, to make sure that you have it lined up right and that it goes in straight. But this plug came out of that hole. You see the oil dripping out now, and there's 6 quarts. There's a lot of oil that comes out in a big rush when you take that plug out. Obviously you're draining almost all the pan, almost all the transmission, I should say, but there is going to be some fluid left in the pan, which to me seems a little odd that they would put the drain plug there as opposed to the center of the sump. But I guess because of ground clearance issues, they don't want the drain plug sticking down or possibly getting ripped out by somebody running over a speed bump or something or whatever. But that seems like a secondary issue. They could have put something to block it instead of not being able to drain the entire pan with the drain plug. So you do have some fluid left in there. I don't think it's a lot. There could only be maybe a couple of cups, I think, maybe a little more, but it isn't much in the overall scheme of the fill of the trans. You do get most of it out. You can see right there it says recommended for NS2 right there, and then CVT full synthetic. I bought a case. This case was 6 quarts. I believe it needs a little over 5, and that should fill it right back up. And as before, when I took the dipstick tube out, the dipstick out of the tube, this fits down in there, and you can see the NS2 is clearly marked on the end of the dipstick. I don't know if you can see that or not. Awful lot of glare for some reason, but says it right there, NS2. So hopefully you can read that. Anyway, I'm going to put 5 quarts of this CVT specialized fluid. This came from Amazon. This is not the factory material, but it is in fact rated for this transmission, and it should be just fine. I've used it before. The fluid that came out was, I thought, didn't look too bad. It looked pretty clean. But when I go and put the new stuff in, I figured out that the deal is that the new stuff is clear. The old stuff had a brownish tint to it, so I'm guessing that's a little bit of burnt, whatever, where the material inside the transmission has started to wear a little bit. It's discolored the fluid, but it certainly didn't look burnt. Doesn't smell burnt. Like I said, it was a slight bit of brown, but it wasn't really very dark. Certainly not as dark as engine oil, but it was certainly not clear. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and put 5 in it. We'll get this thing back on the ground. I still have to put the airbox back on and some other little bits and pieces, but that was peripheral to what I was doing. Like I said before, I just wanted to clean out the airbox. So there we go.